Welcome back. In this video, I'll be going through a travel expense tracker that I built. In this workbook, we have various different sheets. We have a dashboard, trip details, exchange rate, budget planner, expense log, group split, and a top categories pivot table. So on the dashboard, we have a number of different charts here that kind of helps you to see your trip at a high level, as well as looking at your planned budget versus your actual spend. And you can see here that there's a note cell. So you can add pretty much anything here that you want in regards to highlights or any other details. So you could be like, trip was great. Awesome. So now the next thing here is the trip details. So here the trip details is really concise and very simplified, where you can have your traveler names as well as your name, start date, end date, destination, the currency, as well as your total budget. What's really cool about your total budget is that it's used to compare against the sum of the category budgets that you set on the budget planner. So for instance, if you set, like, let's say the budget here for this trip was $20,000, you can quickly see that your planned budget at the beginning, once you set your trip details, is off by 10,000 compared to the different categories and items that you listed within the budget planner, which we'll see in a little bit. The next sheet is your exchange rate. So here in the exchange rate, you can specify what your currency is, right? So we can see here USD is set here, but there's a number of other currencies that you can select from. So let's change this back to USD. And then also you can list out the destination currency, or the currency in which you're trying to say one of that equals how much of your currency. Because what that's used for is to convert all of the different expenses that you list into your currency so that you can determine your splits. You can actually see things in a way that's much more related to your spending. So in this case, we have here €1 equals 0.5 USD. And then we can see here USD 1 to 1, because in some cases, some of your expenses will be charged or made in your currency before you go on the trip or at some other point. And then you can state what was the last updated date. So you can add even more currency conversions here. So we have this drop down that makes it a lot convenient for you to make those additions as well. And you can also update the numbers here, so we can make that 0.86 versus 0.85. On the budget planner, right, you can see here the number of different categories that's predefined within the workbook here, and then also what your stated planned budget is. And then though comparing it against the actual spend that's listed within the expense log, its variance, percent of the total budget, as well as percent of actual spend. So you can see the 3,000 makes up 32% of the total budget, 4,000 makes up 49% of the budget. And then we can also add additional planned budget spend for different areas. So in this case, let's add something, right? So if we go to, let's look at emergency costs. Let's just say that's $10,000, right? And now we can see that makes up now 51%. And if we scroll up to the top, that 3,000 for transportation is now 15%. Okay. And then for the emergency spend costs, that actual spend is 0 because we haven't added anything to the expense log yet. So on the expense log sheet, you can see here a number of different expenses, their categories, descriptions, amount, destination currency, it's converted currency into your currency amount, who it was paid by column has the names of the travelers here listed. The payment method also has a predefined list that kind of runs the gamut, so it gives you that additional flexibility as well as simplifies your ability to enter in more details here. And then the reimbursed is a simple yes or no option. So if we want to add something new, let's say we want to add another day, so let's do September 6th 2025 emergency cost, because we added a planned budget for that, and we could just say emergency, and let's make this 10,000, and we will say the currency here is the euro, and we have that conversion already specified within the exchange rates sheet, so we see that it automatically turns into 8,600 USD. And then we can say that this was paid by Traveler 5. The payment method was a credit card. And reimbursement, no. All right. So now if we go back to the budget planner, we can see here that the 10,000 for the planned budget is here for the emergency cost. The 8,600 is here under actual spend. And you can see the variance as well as the percent of total budget and percent of actual spend. Group split is a really interesting sheet because it allows you to see at a really quick, high level, how much all of the travelers have paid, right? So this way you can use this sheet to determine if you need to reimburse each other or even out how things were paid for, or just add additional notes here in regards to who did what in regards to the total spend on the trip. And the last sheet is a pivot table. And this pivot table is super helpful because what it does is it feeds into these charts here. And these charts focus on the top 4 categories based on spend. And if you make a change, because one of the things that you don't see here is the emergency cost that we added before, you go to pivot table, analyze, refresh. And that way the table refreshes with the new category number changes. And emergency cost is now at the top. And then we can go back to the dashboard and we can see that that change here is now reflected in the dashboard. What I've also done is created a Google Sheets version of this spreadsheet where all of the formulas and the experience has carried over, but the difference here within the Google Sheets and the Excel is that you have a total 4 categories table that's not a pivot table, but instead a table created using the query formula. So now any changes that we make, we don't need to refresh that table. It's automatically represented within the dashboard. So I'll show you that really quickly. So we have the exchange rates here. And then now if we go over to the budget planner, we'll select emergency costs. We'll add $10,000, right? Next, we'll go to expense log. We'll do the same. We'll say September 6, 2025, emergency costs, emergency, we'll say 10,000, and then we change this to euro. So now you can see that that 10,000 automatically converted it into your currency that you specified on the exchange rates sheet. And if we go back to the top 4 categories, we see emergency cost is now here without even needing to do any refresh. And then also on the dashboard, we can see emergency cost is also here. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments or you're interested in checking out this spreadsheet, take a look at the link in the description below.